So in this fireside chat session today, I've got two really impactful global executives. Fernando Pons has been earlier the CAO at European Bank of Reconstruction and Development, and now he's a COO with CEPI, a very interesting organization which he'll talk more about. And Sabby, who I've known for a while, used to be the COO for AIG's life and annuities business, and is now the head of insurance operations for Corebridge, which again, he'll share a little bit about that. So our session really is going to talk about this age of uncertainty that we're living in. And Kevin, in his keynote, of course, showed the different dimensions of that. And the question in front of all of us is, how do you manage a business in this reality, which, and I'm borrowing this phrase from Peter Hinson, the never normal. The reality is today we are being hit from all sides by this hyperconvergence of, on one hand, the geopolitical dilemmas that Kevin talked about. On the other side, the global crisis, we seem to get one after the other, right? We had the pandemic. We're seeing the climate change really affect, almost every nation. We have the looming threat of cyber warfare. And on the other side, you have the opportunity presented by the rapid advancements in technologies. And then you also have these shifting sands of the market. Your consumer needs are changing. The market dynamics are shifting very rapidly or going up and down. So how do you adapt, pivot? How do you build your business to not just thrive, but survive in this never normal? So to start with, Fernando, maybe you can share a little bit about CEPI, what you're doing there, and then Sabby, you can share your background.
Thank you, Anupam, and good morning, everyone. As Anupam explained, I'm the CEO of CEPI. We are a coalition of international organizations that is aiming at preparing for the next pandemic and hopefully having a vaccine ready in 100 days so that we could help the world avoid another huge lockdown and the economic and human costs that it brings with it. And your question is about how do we prepare. It's quite interesting to reflect that the pandemic is not over yet. I mean, we are very lucky. We are in the Western world, all of us probably have 2-3 doses of vaccines, but in the rest of the world, it's not that the situation. There are a lot of people who are still being affected by COVID, and we have to recognize that. The other very important preparation that we're doing is we are ready for the next pandemic. We are exploring the 12 families of pathogens that are out there and preparing draft vaccines so that if the pandemic comes, which is not if, but when, it will come one day, we will have these draft vaccines ready for all of us to really overcome that crisis. So in general, our organization is really accelerating change, is using artificial intelligence, is using all sorts of machine learning and technologies that help accelerate the development of vaccines.
Right.
Thank you. Thank you, Fernando. Thank you, Avasant, for giving the opportunity to meet and to be participating here. So I run operations for a company called Corebridge Financial, which is actually a spin-off of AIG's life and annuity business. It is getting spun off. We're in the middle of that, and I run all of operations for the Corebridge Financial. And we are in the business of life and annuity 403Bs and 401k plans. This is very interesting times, to be honest, as I see that the whole macroeconomy is shifting. We see rising interest rates, inflationary pressures, but on the other side, we see that unemployment is low. Cost of living has gone high. It's a very weird place and time we are in right now, where we see rising interest rate, we also see bonds getting hammered, we also see equity getting hammered. So normally they go opposite of each other. At the same time, the geopolitical situation, as Kevin very clearly mentioned, is a threat, is a challenge. So what we see in our business is how do we become more agile? How do we become more resilient? How do we deal with this crisis? The new normal, or never normal, as you say, we have been using the word new normal. A normal which is ever changing. It's not going to be the same. It's not going to be constant. So how do we become more agile and how do we become more resilient in everything we do and how we serve our customers?
So you agree, in other words, that we are in this state of never normal. It's not the new normal or not the next normal. It's just going to be continuously changing, right? And then you have to be also prepared for another black swan event like the pandemic. In your case, now you're preparing proactively, right, to prepare all the necessary vaccines and a global consensus to handle such a crisis, right? So in this kind of state, how are you preparing from an operational point of view to build a resilient organization and that can handle these both foreseen and unforeseen crises?
Thank you. That's extremely good question, because if you remember what happened during the pandemic, there was a total breakdown of supply chains between Western countries and developing countries. This had a huge impact on access to critical life-saving vaccines and to other medical countermeasures. What we're doing now is to prepare for the next pandemic by creating manufacturing and distribution capabilities in the regions. Going back to Kevin's presentation on regionalization, it's not only necessary to have the right product with the right efficacy and the right capacity for distribution. You have to be able to manufacture it and distribute it in the regions where the people that need vaccines have access. So what we're doing is to prepare manufacturing capabilities in regions where there was no before. For example, in Africa, we're working in Senegal, we're working in South Africa, in Cape Town, with the WHO and other organizations, also Southeast Asia. Because if there is another pandemic, unfortunately, trade restrictions are very likely to go up again, and we have to make sure that vaccines are delivered to the people who need them most at the right price. So to answer your question, the challenge is huge. You have to rethink your supply chains along the line of friendly jurisdictions where you know you can do business, you can protect your intellectual property, and at the same time deliver the right products to the right people.
In our business of insurance and investment, I think we are looking at diversifying our third parties. We are definitely, have been very focused on trying to consolidate third-party partners, but now we are looking from a risk angle. We're looking from a business resiliency angle. We're looking from concentration risk in a particular geography. We have outsourced a lot of our operations like typically everybody has done in our space, in Philippines and India. We are looking some nearshore, Costa Rica and other locations. We are looking at partners, third-party partners. We are also looking at the potential fourth-party risk, which is what we also heard multiple times yesterday and today. There is a fourth-party risk, and how do you manage that? So looking at resiliency and risk managing that has become super important in today's times.
Yeah, but it's not just about your business. Your client's business is also being impacted, right? So how are you changing the way you insure clients and you absorb the risk? How is that side of the business changing for the insurance industry?
We are actually working very closely, and we are treating everybody as a partner. It's an ecosystem of partners rather than vendors. They are helping a lot of problems solve for us. So we are working together, understanding who their fourth-party contract is. Who are they working it? What is their business resiliency? So we are taking the business resiliency at a customer journey level, at an end-to-end level, trying to understand the third parties, the fourth parties, and ensuring that they have got their own backups. They have got their testing, and we do a regular thorough testing, and it's a heavily regulated industry, the insurance industry and the life insurance industry and the whole annuity business. So definitely we have got regulators looking at us very closely, us meaning the whole industry, and we do partner with our ecosystem of partners to ensure that resilience is there.
Okay. So, Fernando, you talked about, of course, how you're proactively addressing the next pandemic when, you said not if, right? What about some of the other crises, like it could be climate change, it could be cyber warfare, right? It could be an energy crisis. So, again, based on your past at EBRD as well, where you were dealing with, consortium of different nations, how does a business or a country or region proactively address these other looming crises?
Thank you. Let me answer that question in two dimensions. First, with regards to climate change, there are two very interesting components. One, we have to ensure that all the CEPI activities, our supply chain, our manufacturing agreements, the development of R&D, basic R&D, it's all done with climate change in mind. So, for example, we have to make sure that by producing vaccines closer to the markets, by reducing the amount of goods and people traveling, we are very conscious of the environment. The second dimension, which is quite fascinating, is that as climate change is modifying weather patterns, the vectors for for disease contagion are going up farther and farther north. So we are working very closely with the United Nations organizations to understand how Zika, dengue, Lassa fever, and many other very dangerous viral diseases are becoming closer and closer to our Western countries, and be prepared for that. And in terms of cyber warfare, cyber attacks, cyber protection, CEPI, it's a target of anti-vaxxers. We are also quite attractive in terms of our intellectual property, and we are very conscious that we have to have extreme high levels of protection against cyber attacks. So we are investing quite heavily. We go through all the usual certification processes, and we also help our partners to make sure that they are also well protected, because it's really a network. We have to protect ourselves, protect our partners, and make sure that the level of awareness within the organization is very high. As we all know, most of the breaches in security happen from the weakest link, which is the unaware employee or unaware human being in the organization who is not doing the right things. So, in summary, absolutely, weather, climate change, cyber, all those are high in our top of mind risks.
Yeah, cyber is absolutely a top of mind also for us, being in the insurance industry and investment, because the customer's privacy, customer information is important, super important for us. And what we have got a lot of focus on how do we manage fraud, how do we build a strong control environment, how do we ensure that our partners have got the right controls in place from a cyber perspective. We do a lot of desktop testing and ensuring that we are current. We also partner with external bodies, the police, the FBI, and others, because we see account takeovers. We have got account takeover issues, and we have to deal with it. So cyber is a real concern for us. We are trying to build our network strong, resiliency in our platforms, and we are also looking at a third party and fourth party. Now, as far as climate goes, climate doesn't impact our business, the life insurance business and annuity directly, but it does impact the insurance industry in the property and casualty side. Now, property and casualty is actually insuring properties and which get impacted because of climate change. And so obviously they are looking at, there's a lot of data analytics, they look at data, there's a lot of pricing, they understand how much of risk they're going to take, how much of risk they're going to give it to a third party and reinsure that. So there is a constant view of the climate, and we are seeing the events which used to be 1 in 1,000 years is now 1 in 200 years. So it obviously changes the risk appetite and how we plan for it and pricing it, ensuring that we work with the reinsurers. So there is a lot of focus on that from a P&C, a property casualty insurance standpoint, but from a life and retirement, climate becomes basically more of an ESG investment for us. And ESG investment we see has been significantly growing, and in the industry we see that about 25% of asset under management is slowly getting into ESG, and which are also increasing their bottom line for the company as they're investing in the ESG. So for us, climate is more as an ESG event, but cyber is truly a big event for us.
Right. So I know, Sabby, as you've gone through this divestiture and you've sort of rebuilt a new organization, right? And we've talked about how important digital transformation has been, and the pandemic showed that you had to become digital in order to operate in this environment. So how can you leverage that digital transformation strategy to build a more agile business that can withstand all these different rolling crises and help your business succeed and operate in this never normal?
Yeah, so I mean, to be honest, the buyer behavior has changed. I guess now everybody wants to, I mean, after seeing you can buy something in an Amazon in your smartphone, buying your flight tickets, booking your hotels and everything in the banking transaction, the customer's expectation has definitely gone to a next level. They want it to be a very simplified process. They want to be very straight through process. And insurance is never easy, was never easy. Now they are slowly moving into a world of digital transformation and for the customers to be able to self-serve. Throw in the pandemic situation, where customers did not want to meet somebody face-to-face, they wanted to do remote. So now in the new normal or never normal, I think customers have a choice. They are looking for an omni-channel. They want to do remote when they want to do remote. They want to do face-to-face when they want, or they want to do self-service. So I think digital transformation is now not a nice to have, it is a must. Our industry has got even microfiche. I mean, you'll be surprised to know we have got microfiche. I have got millions of microfiche sitting in our office, and we have to sometimes go back to look at customer policy in a microfiche. We have faxes coming in. So we are moving in the journey of trying to move from a microfiche world or to a fax world into digitizing and ingesting it and doing robotics and process automation and natural language processing and kind of getting bots to run that. That's a significant move for an industry like ours, and customers are demanding it. Customer wants to be able to do their premium processing in your cell phone. They want to withdraw money in the cell phone. They want to do switching mutual funds for their annuity business in a cell phone. And that capability, given the pandemic, has accelerated our transformation journey. So it's not a nice to have, it's a must have now.
Thank you. Well, we in CEPI, as you know, vaccine development is a heavily regulated activity, and mRNA vaccines have really brought a total new speed of development and a new way of tackling this very important need of fast vaccines. But that's not enough. What we are doing in CEPI is to invest in artificial intelligence and digital twins with the collaboration of some quite advanced scientists in universities and also in private sector companies to simulate the testing and the efficacy and the side effects or potential side effects of vaccines in digital worlds. I'm sure some of you are very familiar with the way that clinical trials are developed. It's hugely labor intensive. You need a tremendous amount of data privacy, patients, ethical committees, hospitals. It's quite a complex logistical exercise. If some of that can be done in a digital twin environment, simulating the potential effect of a particular vaccine on a population or subgroup, and you can, by doing that, accelerate the production of evidence that can be used by the FDA and other regulatory agencies to fast-track the approval of vaccines. That's a huge gain for humanity and for all of us, because instead of having a vaccine in 326 days, which was what Moderna took time to develop the vaccine, hopefully we could do that in 100 days. And the use of these technologies is only starting. The High Commissioner of the FDA in San Francisco in January, he was sharing with a big audience like today here that they are rethinking the way they approve vaccines and other medicines by using, for the first time, digitally enabled models and AI and other tools that can help accelerate the process and lower the cost. So in summary, what we are doing in CEPI, because we fund basic research, is identify the best partners so that we can fund their AI research and hopefully bring back that to society. I remember yesterday one of the speakers in a session said, you don't buy innovation and you can not really just do it internally. It's better to partner with innovating companies. That's exactly what we're doing in CEPI, partner with those innovation companies.
So I think, you alluded to AI, obviously, and I think we're seeing this acceleration in technology disruption, right? And how we talked about also generative AI yesterday, and we'll be having more discussion around that. So how does a company, a global firm like yours, handle technology disruption in terms of both your competitive, threats, but also internally to streamline or make your operations work better?
We take this as an opportunity for us to kind of drive a change. We definitely are looking at that. But when we look at ChatGPT, which is coming in, the whole generative AI, we are cautious. We don't want to be the leader in the pack. We are looking at trying to be a fast follower because we are heavily regulated industry. Our regulators are definitely watching the space. Over last few months, I would probably say a year now, regulators have started looking at how AI is being used to underwrite a life insurance policy. Is there a bias? Is there a unintended bias there using data and using that to drive who gets an insurance and who does not get an insurance, or how do we price the insurance? So when I look at ChatGPT, or when we look at ChatGPT, there's a lot of good use of it. So for example, we have call center reps. And the call center reps are taking the calls, and when they have a question, they go into the document. We have got PDF document, or we have got a website for answering the question. So I see that a ChatGPT as a tool to be fast training or answering a question which a call center rep is doing, or replacing a chatbot could be an answer. But I would not take it as far as, hey, I have to respond a question from a regulator. Regulator has given a question, or a customer complaint has come in. Do I use the ChatGPT or not? Again, that's going to evolve over time, so we are going to be cautious. We are going to be a fast follower. But again, on the other hand, something like robotics and process automation, or something like we are doing a lot of straight-through processing, digitizing end-to-end, that's something is a high priority for us.
Yeah, but the feeling is that ChatGPT is not ready yet for prime time within the enterprise, right? As
Yes.
you saw recently, I think Samsung had that episode where someone tried to use that to create meeting notes, and that got put out there in the public, right? So you have all this risk around data privacy, security, and also getting wrong information.
That's right. So that's definitely, it's an evolving space for us. We are closely watching how it is going to play, but we definitely see that there is a lot of hope with this new generative AI. But we are our industry, particularly insurance, is so far behind. There's a lot of catch up to be done even with the current technology we have got in space, and ensuring that we are protecting the PII of the customers, working closely with the regulators. That's going to be a high priority for us.
Yes, same for us. We are cautiously but actively exploring the use of AI internally within CEPI. Let me tell you an anecdote. Our executive director of manufacturing went into ChatGPT and said, vaccine manufacturing strategy for Africa, hit enter. And what came out was not too bad. He was quite shocked that most of his points were there. Of course, there were inaccurate statements and partial statements, but he was quite impressed. And what we did then was really put a first set of rules within CEPI, which are basically no confidential information, no personal information, and then use human caution to proofread everything that comes out of that. This is for internal use. When we talk about external use and research use, that's a different ballgame. I mean, I'm sure some of you have heard about wrong cancer diagnostic advice being given by an AI engine. It was in the news a few days ago. Researchers, they know that these tools may have hallucinations or lack of consistency. So there is a lot of work to be done yet, but definitely these are tools that we really want to continue using and continue exploring in a rigorous and risk-averse way, because we know the future is coming in that type of large language models and so on. And as I said before, we're investing heavily in very sophisticated protein design and vaccines development models, but this is really in a much more secure and, I would say, sophisticated fashion.
Yeah. So, Sabby, we've been talking about how we're operating in this risky environment. So how do we secure the core elements of our enterprise, right? The supply chain, finance, and other core systems that touch the customer?
To be honest, I think it goes back to the same digitization and trying to automate. In our environment, we have still, let's say, talking about finance. In finance, we still have a lot of manual entries. We still do posting of, significant amount of manual entries, which I think we should be getting out of. So the moment you have a manual entry, and then you outsource the manual entry to a partner doing it in a different country, you're adding in the supply chain issues, you're adding control issues, SOX control issues. So I think the key is now, how do I digitize, how do I automate the whole supply chain, the manual entry, or reconciliation. So I think the first step we have realized is we have to automate. We got to digitize our data. We got to do a straight-through processing. We got to have a data governance in place. We got to have a data management. I think one of the conversations yesterday we heard about data governance, data management, data hierarchy. We have to build that. In our industry, it's still an evolving topic, but we want to do that and be able to do a lot more automation rather than trying to manually do it. Same thing in human resource, HR, and moving from legacy to contemporary tech. That's something we are doing. So I think there are different ways of trying to deal, but I think the first thing for us is to get down to the next level of technology, work with the partners, come out with an end-to-end solution in place, and then digitize and automate.
Quite similar. In a way, we are also in the journey of building our data platform that is open for partners. To secure our business, we have to work with many different research partners, universities, private corporations. And we're in this journey because we want to make our data platform very scalable, very resilient in the sense that we can control who goes into the data platform, who can work with us for a particular data analytics project, and at the same time make sure that the data and the outcomes are controlled by CEPI so that we can share it with the wider scientific community. So this journey of building the data dictionaries and the data governance and the data platform with the right tools and the right partners is a very exciting journey, because we are really a hub for research. And if we build that data platform that is open and at the same time secure, we will be doing a great benefit for the researcher community that will come to us. Just like many of you went to Johns Hopkins University for the latest data on COVID, remember? Yeah. Same thing. We aim to be the go-to place for viral and vaccine development in terms of reliable, accurate, and free data. And that's a very important project for us.
So going back to the original point and what Kevin talked about, we are entering this post-globalization era where you have this sort of new version of the Iron Curtain. How do you see companies, maybe in your case or that you work with, realigning their operations or where they want to invest or which markets they want to go into based on that?
Sure. I mean, we have to think about this never normal as a polycrisis. We like the concept of polycrisis because it's the economic, the geopolitical, the potential health or pandemic crisis, inflation, etc., etc. And in this context, I think that organizations that remain nimble, flexible, agile, with large partnerships and networks of trusted vendors and suppliers that can help them overcome the shocks that will be coming in the next years. I think those companies will be in a much better place. And this is what we are aiming at CEPI, not to be rigid in our thinking, always have this question mark in our mind that the unexpected can happen, as we have seen it happening many times, and be prepared for fast reaction and also having some buffer of resources and managerial bandwidth to adapt to this very turbulent time that we have ahead.
Yeah. And Sabby, Kevin was talking about friendshoring, which is coming out of this new, geopolitical map. So how are you kind of either adopting it, or how are you seeing that?
So we are seeing it from a de-risk standpoint, and also we are looking at it from a customer standpoint. We feel that from a de-risking standpoint, we are looking at nearshore versus all completely offshore to a different location in Asia. And at the same time, we are looking from a customer expectation, from a customer journey perspective. We are looking at 24/7 operations rather than looking at Philippines working in the US time zone. How can I take 24/7 operational? So it is more a business resiliency. It is a risk management. It is a customer expectation, customer experience, customer satisfaction. And more important, partnering with ecosystem of partners who are good at doing it. We are moving away from a school of we can do everything, we know how to do best, to moving to a world where we are saying that we are going to focus only on our core competency. What's our core competency? That's what we're going to focus on. Our core competency is being good in product, good in pricing, good in understanding the customer needs and trying to define a solution for the customer. On distribution, so let's do that. Let's keep that core very tight and keep the core competency, and then rely on partners, an ecosystem of partners, and then diversify your risk through your panel of partners and geographic location, including nearshore, like a Costa Rica, and offshore, or far shore, like in Philippines.
Okay. And one more point on that. Are you seeing the trend again of companies setting up more captives?
I see less of becoming more captives, companies setting up captives, than actually relying on true partners. I think there is a realization in our industry, at least in the insurance industry, that look, let's focus on what is core for us. Let's optimize our return on investment, return on equity, and go with the partners who do that. So in that sense, doing your own captive means that you know it, but that's not how they're looking at it. They're looking at actually going with a partner who can do it much faster, better, who knows it, who have got the bandwidth, who have got people, who have got technology, because we are not good at that.
Mm-hmm. Right. Well, we're almost out of time, so I think we'll end with a question to you, Fernando. You mentioned that the pandemic is not if, when. So should we not throw our masks away? What is your view on that?
Well, I honestly think that being aware that we have had an accelerating trend of pandemics, because you don't remember, we tend to forget consciously the bad things in our recent history that we had before SARS-CoV, we have MERS, we have also avian flu. I mean, so there is an acceleration. I want to send a reassuring message. I think the world has learned that we have to invest in pandemic preparedness and readiness. And luckily, all our governments are now putting money in research, basic research and development, and also manufacturing networks, so that when a pandemic hits, hopefully we will have draft mRNA balance to develop a vaccine in 100 days. I mean, this can really, really change the future of pandemics, because as you remember, the curve is exponential. So if you find a vaccine in 100 days, you are at the beginning of the curve. And this means that millions of lives can be saved, but also, very importantly, our economic life will not be locked down for months and months, and we will be able to continue a quasi-normal life. So please rest assured there are very, very smart scientists and extremely bright people thinking about how to prevent the next pandemic. And please support that. And when you hear about it, do feel some comfort that we are better prepared. Thank you.
All right. Thank you again, Fernando and Sabby. Great insights. Thank you.
Thank you.